Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Friday to you. A Firekeepers Casino Friday. We're live in our American Metal Roof studio in the Gillespie Group Stadium District building, just a couple of blocks from the Capitol where all the action was taking place yesterday. David Brandon, the athletic director at the University of Michigan, used to be the CEO of Domino's Pizza, sort of forward-thinking guy, is now saying that maybe they might expand Michigan Stadium to be even bigger than it is now. He thinks capacity could get up to, you ready, 120,000 seats. And he says if the waiting list gets large enough and they're in a position where they feel it's affordable, they're going to put additional seating in Michigan Stadium. It would be, I guess, in the south end of the stadium, sort of a bleacher system up to the top of the new scoreboards, and the elevation of the east and the west towers would work out that way. They'd make it about 120,000. Can you imagine that? It's a lot of work, he says, to get it there, but that would make it easily the biggest college football stadium in the country. Usually it's right up there with the Rose Bowl, and I think Tennessee, maybe Florida has a big stadium too. But that would be a giant. Lansing area's jobless rate dropped more than 2 percentage points last month. It's the lowest level in more than 2 years. The Michigan Department of Technology, Management, and Budget reported the unemployment rate, 7.6 in April. That's down from 8.6%. So we're very, very happy to hear that. Congratulations to the Lansing area, and let's keep it up. Governor Granholm, the former governor, two-termer here in Michigan, the Democrat, was on MSNBC Wednesday morning. And, you remember earlier this month, it got a little bit sensational when she tweeted about the sex scandal with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she wrote, "Maybe the world needs more female governors. Come on, guys, keep it in your pants." And she said that on the heels of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who admitted that he fathered a child with a longtime family employee. And she and Mr. Mulhern got a lot of attention for those tweets. And yesterday, actually it was Wednesday on MSNBC, she was a guest on the morning show there. And she said that, quote, "Women in power just maybe aren't as attractive to men. But I can tell you that the opportunities aren't there, and perhaps a lot of the instincts aren't there. And I would say this, too. One of the reasons women don't run for office, I think, has to do with protecting their families. And I think women are very protective of their children, and they don't want them to be exposed. And I think that is one of the reasons women in power are also less inclined to commit those kinds of affairs, because they want to protect what they know will be public exposure to their family. They think more about that than perhaps some men in power." That's what Governor Granholm, continuing to be sort of an expert, I guess, on this topic, but getting a lot of attention for that in the national news. Also getting a lot of attention. Now, Jonathan Albrand was with us a few minutes ago, the Vice Commodore of Lansing Sailing Club, and he said that he was on a sort of a big, long 2-week business trip where he had to go to a bunch of different conferences, and one of them was in Iowa. And somebody saw the license plate on his car that it was from Michigan, and they said, "You're from Michigan. We're keeping a close eye on your governor here." And I thought he was going to say because they want him to be in the Iowa caucus and run for president, but they said, no, we like what he's doing, and we hope that our governor in Iowa will do the same thing. John Nixon is the budget director for the state of Michigan. That's probably music to his ears, too. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Governor Snyder got the budget, along with the legislator, of course, Chase Bolger, the House Speaker, a Republican, and Randy Richardville, the Senate Majority Leader, also a Republican. Got the budget done earlier than any time in the last 30 years, of course, with your help. And it seems like on one side of the coin, some folks are very proud of that. On the other side of the coin, there are some people sort of stamping their feet in the corner, and they don't like it very much.
Well, you know what? It was a big team effort. A lot of people did a lot of heavy lifting, but I can tell you, whether you like it or not, you know what you have. And that is new for Michigan. I mean, I've been out talking with people, and they've said, at least we know what we have, and it's great to be able to plan.
Not as drastic or draconian, some would say, as originally thought it might be. It softened a bit in the process, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think to put that into perspective, the gap that we were facing even when we put out the executive recommendation was not nearly as big as a lot of our other states throughout the country. And so the budget that we put out, we felt very strong about. We felt very good about. As difficult as it was, we don't want to minimize the impacts of the budget, but but we felt very, very good about it. And obviously, the increase in revenue, or the updated revenue estimates with the good news, allowed us to apply some money back into some of the hot spots, education being the biggest there, and some of the others. I think that we came up with a good product.
Some people have described it as an austerity budget. Do you feel that's a fair way to call it, or do you feel it's a correction to out-of-control spending?
You know, I wouldn't call it out-of-control spending. What I will call it, though, is it's getting government back to where we're operating within our means. And that's critical because as long as you have a government that's overspending its ongoing base revenue, then you have the threat of instability. You have the threat of tax increases. You have the threat of doing things that you really wouldn't normally want to do under normal circumstances. And so I think by getting the budget back in to balance, basically it gives the message out there that we are operating and we're in a stable and predictable environment.
Do you wish it was a 2-year budget?
It actually, you know, what the legislature did is they did pass the 12 budget like we asked them to, and 13 was always a projected budget. And so they did do that. They did it a little bit differently than we did it, but given the time that they were able to get it done, you know, we were comfortable with that this year.
So, in other words, I think what I hear you saying is that this budget could easily be applicable to next year just the same.
Oh, it absolutely is. In fact, when we were running all the spreadsheets and all the background in negotiating this budget, we had the 13 column right next to the 12 column. And so even though they didn't appropriate the 13 line items, we know that we're balanced in 13. And so it's actually, you know, in my mind, it is a 2-year budget, just that 12 is enacted and 13 is more of a projected.
Is the reason this was able to happen before even the self-imposed deadline by the governor, the fact that it was a Republican House and a Republican Senate?
Well, I think that certainly, you know, I think that helped, absolutely. But I also think more than that, I think that the legislature felt that they had received a strong mandate from the public to get the budget under control, to get Michigan back on stable footing. And I think if you look at it going forward, we really build a budget, and the legislature passed this budget that not only puts us on a solid foundation, but it's addressing our long-term liabilities. I mean, it's very unique. I'd put this budget and the financial soundness of this budget against any other in the country. And I have had the experience of knowing where other states are.
Sure. And
this budget places Michigan on very strong financial footing. Now, it's not over because we've got to have the economic growth. We've got to have, you know, reverse the out-migration. But we'll get there.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Thank you very much for the time this morning. Congratulations, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael Patrick.
John Nixon, the budget director for the state of Michigan, beat the deadline of May 31st. Back in a flash, we're going to talk about George Herbert Walker Bush. They called him a wimp. Was he? We'll find out. Stay tuned.